question, abomination means what? We've already studied the word desolation. We went back into Daniel. We looked at the word in the different places that it shows up in Daniel, and it turns out to be lay waste, destroyed, the desolator person, the prince who does the desolation and his armies and so on. So what are we supposed to understand from this word abomination? Matthew 24:15 said, when you see the abomination of desolation, or some translations have it, the abomination that makes desolate, right? Go and study what's in Daniel, right? And that's what we've done on the word desolation. Now we're going to do it for the word abomination. In Greek, you'll see it in your handouts, Greek definition for abomination is a detestation, all right, which comes from an earlier word, 948. It says to stink. So when you read abomination, it's to stink. It's something that's disgusting. Now, if you go back into the whole Old Testament, you look at all the references to abomination, is something that in God's sight is disgusting. It stinks. It's detestable. It's abhorrent. Right? So, it's saying this, in God's eyes, is an abomination. Right? So the word abomination in Greek means something stinky, something disgusting, something detestable. Jesus is quoting from Daniel, which is written in Hebrew. So we look in there, in the handout, it's got the Hebrew definition. It says something disgusting. So in Greek or in Hebrew, same, disgusting, stinky, something abhorrent, something abominable. So in Hebrew, abomination means something disgusting or abominable. Jesus in Matthew 24:15 is saying, when you see what Daniel is talking about, i.e. the abomination that makes desolation, hurry to the mountain, save yourself from death or captivity. And essentially, you know, most of us are going, I ain't going to be in Jerusalem when this happens. I ain't going there, right? But we don't know, right? And some of Church of God people will be there. And they had better have this verse memorized to where, when the morning and evening sacrifices, which are very exciting for some people, even in God's church, they think that going to watch the morning and evening sacrifices, which is old Bible, but Jesus was the final sacrifice, right? So they might get excited, they might go for the Feast of Tabernacles to go and watch the morning and evening sacrifices at the holy place. They might get all excited, and they better remember this verse that says, when you see the stopping of the morning and evening sacrifices, because it's replaced by the abominable, the stinky one that makes desolate, right? Leave town in the next 20 minutes. Do not stop. Go. Just get out of town. Daniel uses abomination of desolation twice as two words connected together. Daniel 11:31, they take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. And Daniel 12:11, from that time to the daily sacrifices taken away, and the abomination of desolation shall be 1,290 days. That's 30 days longer than 3.5 years. So if he says, on the day the morning and evening sacrifices stop and the abomination, the abominable stinky person that makes desolate is set up, from that day, when you see that, you have a very short span of time to be leaving town, to be up in the mountains, to get away from the fact that the city of Jerusalem, the sanctuary, the whole nation of Israel is going into war. The power of the holy people is going to be destroyed. They're going to be killed in war, or they're going to be taken away captive, right? And you've got, the whole thing is 1,290 days, but so there's a 30-day from the abomination of desolation day till the end of the power of the holy people. And in that 30 days is the war that destroys the nation of Israel and their army. In chapters 8 and 9, Daniel has given the expanded view of this event. And verse 26, the people of the prince, the person, the desolator person, who is to come. So it's a focal point on a person. right? Which we're going to see. We've already had it discussed a little bit. We're going to see it in Revelation as the beast person. Over in Revelation, his title is the beast, because God says he's a beastly person. And if we were to go back in time and we'd say God is looking down on Hitler, would God call Hitler a beastly person? Yes, he would, right? Okay, so in Revelation he chooses to use the beast, the beast, the beast, the beast, the beast. Okay, but we know the beast is a person, because his number is 666, and they make an image to the beast, and he gets thrown into the lake of fire with the false prophet, so he's a person, right? So the focal person, the prince, is a person who shall destroy the city and the sanctuary of Jerusalem, the end of which shall be a flood until the end of the war of desolation. So there's going to be a war that makes desolate, is determined. So the event, the place is Jerusalem, the event is the desolation of Jerusalem and the land of Israel and Palestine. Verse 27, on the wing of abomination there shall be one, a person, who makes desolate, i.e. the desolator. And so God feels like this person is disgusting, he's stinky, he's an abomination, he's abhorrent, he's an abomination. So before chapter 11 and 12, Daniel records earlier in chapters 8 and 9, the desolation, destruction of Jerusalem will be at the hands of the abominable desolator person, right? So Daniel, if you study out Daniel, you see that it's the person that is abominable, who is the desolator. And so we end up with the two words, abomination and desolation, which, when fleshed out, point to the person. We're going to see that he's the beast. We already studied Revelation a good bit, right? So 4 prophecy books focuses on the desolator person. Now, Daniel, he said, the one who makes desolate. So he makes it pretty clear. Jesus doesn't make it clear in the reference to the abomination of desolation, but he doesn't have to, because he says, when he says those two words, he says, go back to Daniel and study out what Daniel had to say. Okay, so in Daniel, Matthew 24, 2 Thessalonians, and Revelation, it shows that the abominable desolation person is the main focus of the phrase abomination that makes desolate. Daniel 11:31, right? And then we go to Paul. Paul shows that the abominator event this way. In 2 Thessalonians 2:3, let no one deceive you by any means, that day, coming of Jesus, will not come unless the man of sin, okay, it's a person, right, is revealed, the son of perdition. He's going to go into perdition. He's going to be thrown in the lake of fire. Okay, this focal person exalts himself above all gods. Another key word here. 2 Thessalonians 2:4, he opposes and he exalts himself above all that is called God. Hitler got close, but he didn't exactly. Hitler didn't claim to be God, but he acted godlike when he had all these masses going, Sieg, Heil, whatever they said, Hitler. And the whole thing was euphoric and demonic and so on. All right? So he exalts himself above all that's called God or that is worshipped, and he sits, the person, sits as God. An abominable thing in God's sight is a human being sitting and telling people that he is God, right? In the temple of God, right? In the shrine, the holy area there on the Temple Mount of God. He replaces the sacrifices, showing himself that he is God. A human Christ. Now, back in Matthew 24:23, Jesus talks about a human Christ-like person coming before you see Christ coming out of the sky on a white horse. He says, if they say, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ. People have been waiting for the Messiah for centuries. People have been waiting for the return of Christ for centuries, right? People all around the world have heard Christ is coming back, right? He says, if they're saying, oh, he's out in the desert, he's over here, or he's over there, just don't believe it, because you haven't seen me come in on a white horse on the clouds coming down in the sky yet. It's not me yet, it's the fake human look-alike Christ person trying to act out. He's the person who makes desolate. So Paul goes on to show that the focal person is also called the lawless one, 2 Thessalonians 2:8. And then the lawless one, person, right, will be revealed from from the Lord, and the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. He throws him in the lake of fire. And now we also see the abomination of desolation is also the lawless one. So now we're beginning to gather words, the beast, we're carrying the son of perdition, he has multiple references and descriptions, but it's the person who makes desolate the city of Jerusalem and the sanctuary and so on. So 2 Thessalonians 2:9, the coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, all right, ties perfectly in with Revelation, because Satan gives him his throne and power and so on, with all power and signs and lying wonders. And the fact that the world accepts this human Christ person as the real Christ person, which is why he warned people. He said, it's going to happen. You have to be prepared. You have to study it ahead of time. You have to know it's going to happen. When it happens, you rest back on the facts of what you've studied in your Bible, and you go, I didn't see him coming on a white horse followed by angels on white horses. Therefore, no matter how exalted this person calling himself Christ is, it's not him. It's not him. And they said, well, we'll kill you. If you don't worship the image of the beast, we'll kill you. They said, well, Jesus told us that too. That's what's going to happen. So you just have to be prepared to die for the sake of Christ, which he says in many other places, right? So the study of Revelation shows that he is called the beast, right? If you just study Revelation, then you just get the beast. But it's obviously a person, right? If you just study Thessalonians, then he's the lawless one, he's the man of sin, he's the son of perdition, but he's a person, right? And if you study Matthew 24, it's a person who appears to be Christ-like, but isn't, because Jesus hasn't come yet. Revelation 13:12. He exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the earth and those who dwell in the earth to worship the first beast, the person, the abomination person, the the stinky one, the abominable desolator person, right, whose deadly wound was healed. Satan helps out here with a little miraculous. Everybody thought he had died, and now he's alive again, so woo, this has got to be godly, and he's showing himself that he is God, so he must be God, Revelation 13:14. He deceives those who dwell on earth by the signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast. This is the false prophet, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image. Remember Nebuchadnezzar's image? Way back, Satan had Nebuchadnezzar make an image, a golden image, and when they heard the music, they were all to fall down and worship the image, right? Okay, it was a forerunner of this one, only this one's more satanic, because this image, this handmade image, can actually speak, and cause people to be put to death. So this has got to be extraterrestrial, so it's got to be godly, because they haven't read and studied their scriptures ahead of time. So he's granted in the sight of the beast, telling all those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast that was wounded by a stroke, right? So it says, wounded by the sword. Well, wounded by the sword, lots of people have been wounded by the sword and they recovered, no problem, right? But essentially it says, was struck or stroke, is the wounded part there in the Greek, by sword and lived. And the "and lived" showed that he was dead, and everybody recognized that he was dead. Oh no, our great leader is dead, and then he revives. Wow, that's godly. That's just like Christ, who was dead, who revived, right? So other verses in Daniel describe this as the king of the north person, right? So here we got another title for this person, but it's all the same person. It's just as you do the studies in Daniel, in Revelation, in Thessalonians, and Daniel in Matthew 24, you're only getting a sliver of a description. Beast in Revelation, son of perdition in Thessalonians, and so on. Daniel 11:21, in his place shall arise a vile person. Okay, now we got another title for him. This is the king of the north, the third king of the north. If you read verses 19, 20, and 21, you have king of the north number 1, then you have king of the north number 2, then verse 21 is king of the north number 3, and this is the final king of the north, right, who is the beast power who, destroys the city of Jerusalem and so on. He's a vile person, he's an abomination, right? Who will not, they won't give honor of royalty, but he will come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. 10 verses after that verse, this vile person shuts down the daily sacrifices. Same person, desolator person. The abominable desolator. In Hebrews there, the definition for vile is to disesteem or to despise or to disdain. So we're back to, in God's sight, this human calling himself Christ is a stinky, abominable, horrible person. He's going to destroy the city of Israel and Jerusalem. And if you're anywhere in the region, you had better get up into the mountains in a hurry. So it turns out that when you expand on the thought, you come up with abominable, desolator person is what it's all talking about, but you have to do your studies and you have to bring them together and use all the different descriptors, but it all ends up to be one person who makes desolate, right? So when Jesus said abomination of desolation, he told his readers to go back to Daniel, see there that the abominable desolator person is the focal point of all the tribulation. So the phrase abomination of desolation, which we've just sort of memorized and never been quite clear on, I wonder what it's going to be, right, is very clearly described as the abominable, stinky, abhorrent person who claims to be Christ, who makes desolate, is far better understood, like I say, as the abominable desolator who will overthrow physical Israel just at the beginning of the 3.5-year tribulation. The daily sacrificial system has not yet begun in Jerusalem. But on the day that it begins, a lot of this will come flooding back. It's like, you know, every now and then you see something flashed on global TV, Trump wins the presidency. You know, everybody around the world got to see that, right? This event will be flashed on global TV around the thing. And that day when you see that, you then can think forward. We don't know how long the sacrifices will be going, but we know how they end. They end by being stopped and replaced by the abominable desolator person, the beast. So when we see it, you know, we can begin, you know, right now we can begin to watch closely for the king of the north, beast power, to shut it down and then proclaim himself to be God. And then this phrase, abomination of desolation, it'll be just so clear that is this abominable, stinky person who is going to make desolate the city of Jerusalem.